You know, while reading this Weird Al book, I kind of realized it's been 10 years since the Clone Wars started, hasn't it? No? Anyways, the Clone Wars was a very, very fantastic cartoon. It had some issues. I'm personally not a huge fan of it, but the Clone Wars cartoon was pretty spicy. However, I can safely say that the Clone Wars toy line was way better. Hasbro and Lego went full force with the Clone Wars toy line, and they did a really damn good job. When the Clone Wars line launched, there was plenty you could buy. The 3¼ inch action figures, the Lego sets, you could even buy stuff for the kiddies. Hey look, it's Captain Rex and Commander Cody, but they're made for little kids! Whoa! Honestly, these are really neat and collectible. I can't really diss these. But do you want a Captain Rex with revolutionary leg squeeze, frickin' gun flailing epic fucking bad? I bet you do want that, do you? Everyone does. And don't even forget the Happy Meal cash-ins. They sold so many Lego sets for the Clone Wars, it's outrageous. I have a fair selection of the minifigs, but after a while I fell off of Lego. I have more Lego sets than this, but here's my two favorite Lego Clone Wars sets. The Republic Shuttle and the ATTE. These things are very nicely detailed, very accurate to the show, have a lot of various play features, and the minifig selection was generally nice. Captain Rex, Ahsoka, Anakin, Mace Windu, Clone Pilot, can't go wrong with that. One thing with the Lego Clone Wars minifigs I just can't get past are the eyes. Those eyes. What is this? What am I looking at? They tried to make the eyes look like the cartoon eyes, and it just looks so disturbing on almost every single level imaginable. Not that the square noses were bad. Can we just stop talking about the Lego? Let's talk about the 3¼ inch figures. The first figure I saw was, of course, the mail-away Captain Rex. And of course I mailed away for it. I mean, it's a freaking new clone trooper, why wouldn't I? But I just looked at this face. This face on this Captain Rex, when I first saw it, I really didn't like it. Something about this face, it looks like it was chiseled in like the ancient Greek era. It has a very weird aesthetic to it. And all of the Clone Wars, especially at the start of it, really had weird chiseled faces. It's like you look at the faces and you kind of think, gee, why is his nose a square? But that's the route they went, and honestly, I can't really say I'm too upset about it. It's a generally fair aesthetic, and the toy line really did capture that aesthetic quite well. I gotta say, this mail-away Captain Rex, when I actually got it in the mail and opened it up, I was quite surprised at how good this thing was. The articulation is exquisite, and the paint applications, while you can see are worn out on mine because I played with it all the time, are really nice. You didn't just get the figure, though. The box turned into a display stand. Truly revolutionary engineering, never been done before. Absolutely fantastic job. But seriously, talking about this display stand, it transforms really nicely and is actually quite solid. It really just shows how solid the Clone Wars line would become. And with these details and seeing all the battle droids marching in, you just knew that the show would be pretty cool. The show was pretty alright. And Captain Rex wasn't even the last mail-away either. There's Nadar Veb and Sergeant Brick. However, when the first wave started marching in, that's when shit got real. I don't know if any of you young whippersnappers were around for Midnight Madness. But Midnight Madness was the original debut of the Clone Wars line, and oh my god, it was great. I went the morning after and I was still able to get all the figures I wanted. That just being the Clone Troopers. Do you blame me? Now don't get me wrong, just because I got the Clone Troopers doesn't mean that the rest of the first wave was really bad, but some of the figures, like Yoda, I didn't even bother getting it. It just looks like a freaking little McDonald's toy. I don't understand why they didn't bother. Oh, they made a better one later? Oh, okay, that's forgiven. As you'll probably soon realize throughout this video, they ended up remaking a lot of the original Clone Wars figures into more better figures with better details, better accessories. I don't know, I feel like they just kind of didn't get it right at the start, and they still wanted really good figures later on, so they just kind of decided, hey, didn't get it right the first time, let's try to get it right the second. As you can see, the original Wave 1 Obi-Wan Kenobi had this plastic tunic that really limited the articulation, and with subsequent re-releases, they changed it to fabric and gave him more paint, say Geonosis wear. Gotta give it to you, Hasbro. Always finding ways to make me give you my money. The General Grievous was alright. Lightsabers or no, this 4 arms thing just looks kinda weird. Of course, the Clone Troopers always carried on this beautiful aesthetic of just being absolutely fantastic! Is being fantastic an aesthetic? It probably should be. However, as time went on, the clone troopers did get some less articulation, and eventually near the end of the line, just kind of got kind of bad. Now, I could just sit here and talk about the Clone Wars clone troopers all day. However, I kind of think I should save that for another video, don't you think? Let's talk about the general toy line in and of itself. The Jedi were pretty great. Yet again, they always kind of had this, the first one isn't that good, but the second one will be better, right? While the articulation was pretty average for 3 3/4 inch figures, the accessories were, obviously aimed towards kids. Do you want your Commander Cody with a rocket launcher on his rifle? Oh, how about your Savage Opress with a missile launcher? And the pack-ins didn't stop with just the stupid missile launchers. You could play the Galactic Battle Game! Each figure came with a display base, a card, and a die! I love these die so much, I have a whole collection of them. These are the best things that Hasbro has ever produced. And these cards, too, while they're actually quite collectible, are just kind of a waste. I mean, do people really care about freaking cardboard cards with their action figures? Maybe one day I'll actually waste my life and play this Galactic Battle Game. After they pretty much finished off the main characters for the TV show, they really got obscure. They started making characters that appeared in maybe 1 or 2 episodes and maybe in the background, like Quinlan Voss, those bounty hunter commandos, and even started making exclusives of characters that were only in video games. Take this beautiful Kolteska figure, for example. I love Scott Cohen's, and honestly, the Republic Heroes video game was pretty good. And I think they represented him very nicely in figure form. He's very, very big for a Star Wars figure. He's like 6 inches tall, and he has various little hinges, and you can remove his gun if you want. If you want to remove his handgun, be my guest. During the period where they started making super obscure figures is where it just really, really shined. Characters like Savage Opress, Pre Vizsla, and Hondo Ohnaka, characters introduced for the show, were just so nicely made. The articulation was generally really nice, and the details were just so show accurate. They even came with very character-fitting accessories. Some of them, like Embo, generally shine as just being a fantastic figure. While the clone troopers were generally pretty fantastic, the battle droids were a little lackluster. And after a while their limbs start to warp, and they just start bending over while they're even on a display stand. The battle droids are super top heavy and generally can't even stand up. The same's with the Geonosian, it's just nothing but a wibbly wobbly mess that can't stay together. I can't even stand this thing up, it's just a piece of trash! Can't do it. Now you may be thinking, oh J4, you've only been talking about the figures, what about the vehicles, man? The vehicles were so great in the Clone Wars, they're so fantastic, I love all the vehicles! Now unfortunately, I'm not really a collector that can really afford the space for vehicles. However, there is one vehicle I do have, that was very, very generously given to me. Turbo Tank. The Turbo Tank is very large and in charge, dude. It shows the glory of the Clone Wars line during its midlife. You got the large size, tons of various opening panels, tons of places to put figures, lights and sounds, even various sound bites from both the Clone Wars, the movies, and the old Clone Wars. Always appreciate hearing some of that Tartakovsky.
All units attack!
Stuff like this is just the kind of toys you'll never see nowadays with Star Wars. They put tons of effort into this Turbo Tank, and it was only about $100, and it even included a figure that I don't have. Ooh, a speeder bike in the Turbo Tank, that reminds me. The Clone Wars had a subline called Mini Rigs, where they included figures with smaller vehicles. They had ones from the show, like the Scuba Clone Trooper with the Scuba Jet. They had repaints of pre-existing vehicles, like Commander Cody and this freaking awesome 212th speeder bike. They even had original designs like this Phase 2 Clone Trooper pilot with a dropship that's really reminiscent of the old Attack of the Clones gunship. While I want to say that the Clone Wars line evolved throughout the years, it really didn't. The articulation was very so-so and always varied between a character having knees and not having knees, having ankles, not having ankles, having elbows, not having elbows. Another thing that was very inconsistent was the packaging. You started off with this Clone Trooper style box, and then you got to this style box, and then they changed it again, and then they changed it again, and then when they changed that, they made it green. They changed it to green. Another thing that's very inconsistent about Clone Wars figures are the pricing. Some of the figures may run you about retail price, and others are just rare as hell. Take the ARC Troopers, for example. This thing's like almost $100. Look at it. $100 right here. $100. Not even joking. Want to buy it? $100, please. Line on up. Line on up. That's another very unfortunate thing about the Clone Wars. When the line started off, the distribution was absolutely fantastic. You could find anything you wanted. And then it just kind of turned into, well, kind of what every Hasbro line eventually turns into, doesn't it? Impossible to find! I'm actually missing quite a few Clone Wars clones because I couldn't find any. And after a while, some figures like the ARC Trooper Battle Pack just became so excruciatingly expensive that some people will probably never even have the chance to see them in person. And I'm just talking about a toy line that's a few years old. I'm not talking about a vintage line or anything. And as the line progressed, and as the figures got harder and harder to find, the quality got worse and worse. The Clone Troopers lost their knee articulation, they lost their wrists. They even started doing realistic Clone Wars figures to be more collector-oriented, but even then characters didn't come with the accessories they had, and the paint applications were terrible. However, that's the realistic Black Series stuff. The realistic Vintage Collection stuff... Vintage Collection came first and certainly was way, way better. The figures were way more articulated, had a lot going on, and just really impressed me. The Black Series, though... I really don't want to mention them, but there's 5 POA realistic Clone Wars as well. I only have the Captain Rex because they're honestly really bad, but just because they're Clone Wars figures, a lot of people scooped them up, and some of them are, pretty crazy prices. Look at this. What is this? What am I looking at? As the line came to a crawl, as the figures started getting harder and harder to find, as the articulation started to go down and down, as the very inconsistent, while generally good line became a very consistently lower quality line, that's when Disney bought Star Wars. And that's when the Clone Wars was canceled, and that's when the Clone Wars line was canceled. Unfortunately, there's many characters we never really got to see. Now, granted, I'm not a huge fan of the Clone Wars, so I don't really feel like it's in my right to really tell you these characters. So I'll have someone who's more of a fan of the Clone Wars really tell you.
You know, come to think of it, there's a lot of great figures that are missing from the Clone Wars line. Such as ARC Trooper 5, you got Gregor, you got Rack 47, you got Jcc2224. Trooper.
Shut up! This is my show!
That wasn't very nice. Well, fuck you too. I didn't want to be in your stupid show anyways.
So overall, what can I say about the Clone Wars that hasn't been said? It's great. From one of the old eras of Star Wars pre-Disney, where it really just kind of shined and showed that there's still a lot of people out there caring about Star Wars and making stuff not just for money. I'm saying that just as I'm making a video talking about all the merchandise, but yeah, the Clone Wars was generally very heartfelt, and I really did enjoy it. Even though I don't really reflect on it now as being a huge fan, because it was more hit and miss to me, but I still just... The toy line was great, and we'll never have anything like it ever again. The Rebels line sucks! I'm looking at you, Rebels. I'm looking at you, Disney. Yeah, your 5 POA shit. You think you can get away with this? No, you can't. You can't. I'm gonna get on you. I'm gonna get on you. Just wait and see. You know, I think I've pretty much said everything that could be said. The Clone Wars line's great. It's fantastic. I wish they'd bring it back in some way for the 10th anniversary coming up, but, well, it's Hasbro nowadays. What do you expect? I'm just gonna read my freaking Weird Al book. Go away, please. Just let me read my Weird Al book.